Welcome back guys to another Odyssey video. A lot of people are often struggling to stay alive when they start playing Odyssey or when they switch to a higher difficulty. However, staying alive in this game is incredibly easy and there are multiple ways to be completely invincible, literally forever, if you do it correctly and if you know all the tricks. In this video I will show you all the necessary defensive engravings and how to use them properly to never die again when you play this game. But aside from using the correct engravings and the correct build, it is also important to know that in this game you will almost never die in a single hit. The game has actually a mechanic that prevents you from dying by a single hit. Every time you get hit, you are only down to 1 hit point. In these situations you can simply heal your character to your maximum health, which can also be 25%, and then you can take another hit and you will never die by doing so. Knowing and abusing this trick alone makes it extremely easy to play even on higher difficulties without any protection at all. Another big misconception is that health and armor doesn't really do anything. No matter how much health or how much armor you have, you can stack up to 400 or 600% armor, it literally doesn't protect you at all. You will still take a lot of damage and the damage reduction you actually receive from having so much armor is almost completely negligible. So you should never waste any of your engraving slots to increase your armor, and you should also not waste your engraving slots to increase your health, because these two engravings are the absolute worst defensive engravings you can use. You should absolutely dismantle every item that has these stats. That also means that the armor value on your gear is completely unimportant. What really prevents you to take any more damage is resistances. Once you reach 100% resistance in any of the 3 categories, melee, range or elemental, you will no longer take any damage from these attacks. If you have 100% melee resistance, you will no longer take any damage from any melee attacks. If you have 100% range resistance, you will no longer take any damage from range attacks, and if you have 100% elemental resistance, of course you will no longer take any damage from fire or poison attacks. But since almost 90% of all attacks in this game are melee attacks, it is actually most important to get 100% melee resistance, which will then protect you from the vast majority of all incoming damage. Of course, getting so much protection also requires many engravings to be used in your build, and that is also one of the reasons why this might not always be the best solution. However, resistance engravings can be increased up to 30%, and for reaching 100% that means you have to place 3 resistance engravings of each type in your gear and then use the remaining 10% from the masteries to reach 100%. Special items such as the Spartan Javelin or simply using the Greek hero set can really help you to achieve that goal. However, you will still need a ton of engravings nevertheless. So while resistances are the strongest and most protective engravings you could potentially use in your build, they also conflict with other powerful engravings such as the Corfu engraving. Because the Corfu engraving literally gives you another minus 100% resistances, which would require you to get the double amount of resistances, which is literally impossible. A really smart way, but actually not an entirely safe way to counter the negative resistance from the Corfu engraving is to use the ignore half damage engravings. When you put 40% on your helmet and 40% on your belt and add another 20% from the masteries, you will have 100% chance to ignore half damage. The way this works is pretty simple. When you are at 100% resistances, you will take no damage. If you have 0% resistance, you will take the normal amount of damage, and if you are at minus 100% resistance, you will take the double amount of damage. So the Corfu engraving literally gives you the double amount of damage for every hit you take. But with 100% chance to ignore half damage, you will completely counter this effect and only receive the normal amount of damage. However, you probably want to add even more melee resistance anyway to such a build and also play at full health to get the most out of it. So the ignore half damage is a very cost-effective solution since it only uses 2 engraving slots in your gear, but it is also not the best protective solution available. Something which is way better and also can be considered pay to win is ISO Enhance. ISO Enhance is unlocked by collecting the Decaster set from the 3rd episode of the Atlantis DLC and can be engraved on your helmet. Whenever you get hit while wearing this engraving, you will become invincible and get the glowing aura, which is a similar effect to when you use Ares Madness. During this mode you can still take damage, but you will not die, so whatever damage you take, you will be stuck at 1 hit point. A not so well known fact is when you use ISO Enhance, all your warrior abilities like Ring of Chaos, Bull Rush or whatever will also use your assassin damage, dealing way bigger numbers than when you only use warrior damage. So ISO Enhance might look like the perfect solution which needs only one engraving to be protected from everything the Greek world has to offer. But it also has its downsides, and one of the biggest downsides of course is that you still take damage while you're ISO enhanced. You don't die, but you still take damage, which means that your crit chance is lowered and your critical damage is also lowered. The second downside of ISO enhanced is that it has a 2-minute cooldown, but the cooldown can be completely eliminated with the so-called invincibility glitch. This is of course a fundamental game-breaking glitch, but we are in fact only removing the cooldown timer from ISO enhanced so that it is basically always active. Ares Madness and ISO Enhanced do not only look very similar, they also kind of interact with each other, because whenever you activate Ares Madness, it will reset the ISO Enhanced cooldown timer to 0. So as soon as you get hit, you also trigger Ares Madness, so that whenever all this stuff is over, you are immediately protected again. No matter in what situation you are, or no matter if you even need Ares Madness at that point, the only purpose of activating Ares Madness during ISO Enhance is that whenever this is over, you are immediately protected again. But since Ares Madness also has a very high cooldown by itself, it is also recommended to use the Ares Madness cooldown engraving, with which you only have to make 2 kills to completely reset Ares Madness as well. So if you don't have Ares Madness ready, you only have to make 2 kills and then you can still fire Ares Madness while still ISO enhanced. This glitch is by far the best way to protect you from ever dying in any situation in this game. However, this is nothing you can do on early levels, but there is still something very similar. Instead of Ares Madness on lower levels, you can simply use Battlecry. Battlecry is especially useful because you can also increase its duration to be up to 40 seconds in total by using the engraving which is unlocked by the Titus Fury sword. So if you have this engraving or if you want to buy this sword from the store, you will have up to 40 seconds of Battlecry and invincibility. And then we can use a similar trick as before, because we only have to make 2 kills to completely reset the Battlecry cooldown. So you don't have to wait for Battlecry to be available again. You can basically save up a Ring of Chaos and then immediately trigger Battlecry again and do whatever you want with all your enemies. This is one of the most powerful combinations for early game God mod builds, and I think the only possible way to make an early game God mod build. These are basically all the major options you have to stay invincible while playing this game, and they are super easy to use most of the time. There are ready-made builds for all of this here on the channel. I've linked some of you in the description for you. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like, and see you next time.